It started with the dodo birds. When we heard they had been rediscovered on the island of Mauritius, my wife and I laughed along with everyone else. It sounded crazy, right? A species that humans had famously helped send to extinction over 300 years ago, reappearing out of the blue on a modern and well-mapped island crawling with tourists. And not just a few birds hiding in some tiny corner of a park, but thousands of them, all over the place. For a global news story, it was a nice change of pace from the usual disasters and wars. It made people smile, especially the citizens of Mauritius, who quickly made fortunes by exporting the eggs to anyone who wanted a taste of extinction. But soon enough, we all got a taste, when news about the dodos was overshadowed by other mysterious incidents. Woolly mammoths appeared in China. A massive herd of bison flattened a small town in Kansas. Whole sections of the Grand Canyon were suddenly only as deep as a stream. The pace quickened, and strange events began to occur faster than anyone could keep up with. Amelia Earhart turned up safe and sound. In Mexico, the ocean near the Yucatan Peninsula started to boil. A panic-induced terrorist attack in Nevada was traced back to a failed atomic bomb test in 1951, which apparently hadn't failed, only been postponed. Elsewhere, everyone held their breath when a UFO landed, certain that the spacecraft would hold some answers, but it only contained two very confused Indian astronauts who claimed to have launched in 2041. While all of this was happening, scientists were in high demand on television. "We can't explain the phenomenon yet," one of them admitted. "I doubt we'll ever be able to, but to put it simply, time itself appears to be decaying. It's breaking down. Time is rusting." We had to call it something, so, for whatever reason, his term for it stuck, rusting. And the rust kept expanding. It's everywhere now. Not that now means anything anymore, of course, but while there are big events like the glacier in Europe and the vanishing pyramids, more and more often, there are also tiny personal spots of time that flake unexpectedly. One of those rust spots happened to my wife. Shelley was pregnant. Then, without warning, the fetus was suddenly middle-aged, and as you can imagine, having two adult bodies in one place meant neither one would survive. After that, I didn't care very much about anything. I figured that if time was going to go mad, then I would too. I even laughed, just like I laughed at the dodos when the doctors diagnosed my own little rust spot. Oh, I don't have it so bad. Not really. In fact, it's nice to know I was meant to last so long. But sometimes, having a 100-year-old heart feels like a cold comfort when the rest of you is only 30.
Number 2.
It's been a year since I've done heroin. There was a variety of reasons why I started, all of them equally stupid in retrospect. But the important thing is the reason I stopped. The last time I shot up, I was with a group of 4 friends. We stuck together almost always, and we were all more or less homeless. 1 year ago, we decided to bust into an abandoned house, so we had a spot to sleep. It was drizzling that night, and none of us wanted to spend another night sleeping outside. We took out the bit of heroin we had left, and split it between us, all shooting up. I laid back, looking at the decrepit roof of this decaying building, wondering if that's what my insides look like after years of drug use and, in a different sense of the word, abandonment. I was in such a high that I could lay there, look around and think, but felt like I couldn't move or speak. My mind wandered and slipped off into a dreamlike state. When I looked around, I saw a man I didn't recognize in the house with us. He was hunched over, draped in dirty and tattered clothes, his hair long, matted, and greasy. He had no shoes, and his skin was yellowing and almost crusty. I couldn't tell what he was doing at first as he stood over David, one of my friends sleeping on the cold ground. He took his fingers and gently opened David's eyelids, but David didn't move. The man slowly closed them, and the color seemed to drain out of David's body. He did this to both of my other friends before hovering over me. "Please, no," I meekly muttered, still feeling unable to move. His face got close to mine. His yellowing, deceased eyes stared into mine. "I like you. Change your ways," he said. His breath was so bad, I held back a gag. His teeth were rotting from the inside out. He pressed his fingertip against my lips. "Just change your ways," he said. I slipped off into the dreamlike state. I had no idea if what I saw was real or a dream. Some sort of opioid-fueled hallucinogenic nightmare. I woke up early the next morning, and remembering what had happened, ran from the house. The newspapers officially listed my friend's deaths as overdoses, and the next day, I checked myself into the hospital to detox. Often during my stay, I hallucinated his face. I'd see him picking in the windows. I couldn't tell if it was a hallucination or not. I still can't. I see him all around. When I have a temptation, or when I walk past old spots I used to buy, he stares at me. Last night, I thought about using, and I saw his decrepit face look through my window. But he never stays. I've changed.
Number 3.
I work up at the stables on Sundays, being a horse-loving teenager, and because I get a discount on my livery fees. A few months ago, in January, something rather disturbing happened, which scarred me and my horse for life. I was doing my usual morning job of tacking up when a guy who isn't a rider walks into the yard and approaches my trainer and the yard owner. They start talking, and a few more people join them. They all look worried, and the guy is holding up a piece of paper. A few minutes later, my trainer rushes over to me and explains what this guy said. Apparently, a man has gone missing, but his dog had been spotted up by the black barn in the middle of 2 fields, which is a place where both me and my friend ride a lot, as crossing the fields and using the brittleway is quicker than the road. It isn't accessible by road, so he wants riders to go up there to see if the man, and also his dog, are up there. Apparently, this guy who went missing is a bit odd, and has told us not to approach him, only to ring the police if he's there, and to stay up there to surround him if he is not armed. My trainer then says I have to go up with some of the other liveries and workers, as she needs to stay and teach and look after the younger stable girls. I agree and set off to tack up my horse, Silver. A bit of information: Silver is not a big horse and is very petite in his build. He's an Arab crossed with a thoroughbred and an ex-racehorse, meaning he can put on some speed and can be very flighty despite being 22 years old. I'm not a big person, only about 5'5", and I look mature for my 17 years. Skip forward about 30 minutes, and I'm galloping along the brittle path. I see the barn up ahead, surrounded by stubble fields which haven't been dug up yet. It just gives me the chills, seeing it. It looks so out of place up there, so unnatural. I hear a dog barking up there, and red flags start waving in my brain. It could just be a dog out with its owner, but it doesn't seem to come from the barn. The other riders spread out and ride across the field slowly. We're approaching at just about a trot, Silver not wanting to stay in a walk out of nerves. I was the first person to ride around to the open side of the barn. I suppose I was perhaps the stupidest one to go first, or the only one whose horse isn't scared of dogs, as the other horses were getting nervous from the barking. What I notice as I start walking around there is the dog is whimpering now, rather than barking. Also, Silver is being very hesitant while a few minutes ago he was pacing along rather fast. He had his ears forward and was craning his neck to see what was there. What happened next, I was not expecting. This guy bursts out, yelling and cursing at me, waving the kitchen knife at me. I scream as Silver just bolts, ears back and absolutely thundering along like his tail is on fire. I'm crying, terrified that this guy has a gun as well, that the other riders will be subject to this psycho. Silver would not stop and was pulling so hard at the reins that my arms were aching from trying to steady him up. I kept glancing back and I saw horses retreating quickly. I guess they heard me scream and I knew that the guy was there. We kept galloping, even when crossing the road until Silver was blowing and foaming at the mouth. We were now on a concrete track which went down between two fields. I was well away from the barn now, and my heart was just about to still in my chest. I dismounted and held Silver while I called my friend, and this is where I will let her details take over. Apparently, upon hearing me scream and seeing my horse take off, everyone knew the guy was there. He came around the side and started cursing at all of them, telling them that it was his fault he was there, and that he would kill them all, and various other obscenities. The police were called and came screaming down the road and managed to get over to him by running through the massive field. He was now in the back of the car, and apparently the police took the dog as well. I ended up walking halfway home, leading Silver. He was so tired that when I rode him halfway, we couldn't go faster than a walk. Poor horse. I couldn't stop thinking about what would have happened if the guy had a gun. If I wasn't on a horse, and if we riders hadn't gone up to find that bastard. I'm ever grateful to Silver for running away and not bucking me off. Without him, I'd either be injured or dead. Silver will never go in that field, no matter how much I try and make him. To be honest, even I hate riding past it, and I'll go the long way on the road. So, creepy guy in the black barn, let's hope both Silver and myself never ever meet you again.
Number 4.
I have always been uneasy driving alone at night. It was worst the first few times when I had just gotten my license, but the nagging fear has never gone away to this day. It's disorienting to look into the mirrors and see nothing. And I mean nothing but the consuming blackness of the night. It makes me hesitant to check the mirrors should I see this dark void. Or worse, someone sitting in my back seat, staring at me. In the summer of 2013, I found myself driving home alone on Highway 902 from a party. It was almost midnight, and needless to say, it was pitch black. As was usual at night, I was on edge. I had the radio off and could hear nothing but the muffled roar of tires on pavement and the dull hum of the engine. I stole a glance into the middle rearview mirror and saw nothing but darkness through the back window. I know that I looked backward and saw nothing. I'm sure of it. Just the seemingly endless blackness of the night. I remember it so clearly because not 10 seconds later, a car passed me to the left, headlights on. I had one of those sudden adrenaline rushes, like when you think you see a person outside your bedroom window and then it's just a tree. Or when you start awake at night with the feeling of falling. 10 seconds earlier, nothing had been behind me. Suddenly a car? I drove all the way home shivering and knowing something was off. The next morning, I found 2 sets of scratches near the back of my van. One was on the left rear, one was on the right. The car was pretty old. They could have been there for months, but that was the first time that I distinctly remembered seeing them. In hindsight, there are 2 possibilities for what happened last night. Possibility 1, by some glitch in reality or something paranormal, this other car had somehow appeared behind me within 10 seconds of me checking my mirror, like some weird ghost crap or something. However, The second option is what makes my blood run cold whenever I consider it. It didn't occur to me until months after the fact, but it makes me dread driving alone at night even more. Possibility 2. The car was normal. It had approached me from the rear and passed me to my left. However, something large and wide and as black as the night had been clinging to the rear of my car, obscuring my view through the window and leaving deep scratches on the sides. And I had inadvertently driven it home with me.
Number 5.
2 things happened last month that went beyond the definition of a coincidence. The neighbor died of a heart attack, and his dog, Sandy, was found pawing the earth at the entrance of the house the day before. No one thought anything of it, but I did. You see, ever since migrating to Sri Lanka in the 70s, I've been immersing myself in the island's culture. The mysticism and superstitions that pervade this island promises to leave your skin waste with goosebumps. The housewives of the sepia-toned 70s used to say that a dog pawing the earth of an entrance to a house signals an impending death. But those were stories from the past, and the old ways have died. And people have forgotten, as they are apt to do. But the vestiges of such stories always have a hold on you when you've seen things that you just can't explain. I'm in my 80s now, and I know I don't have too long to live. Call it my tired old imagination, but Sandy has been visiting me quite often these days, and just staring at me with a sense of sadness that makes the white hairs on my back stand on end. Oh, she'll know when my time is up, and she's sure to let me know when those paws of hers go digging about.
Number 6.
The man sat on his bed, listening as the dark voice told him to use the gun and kill himself.
Do it. End your suffering. Commit the ultimate sin.
The man prepared to end it when in his mind, a different voice combated the evil. No, my child, you cannot end your life now. You're a good man. Think of your daughter, your wife. You must live. The man began to weep, putting down the weapon. From that moment on, he swore to dedicate his life to the church for the voice of God that had saved him. The devil sighed, another one he had failed to save. There are many misconceptions about the devil. Most believe he was sent to hell for his hatred for humanity. That's not true, however. He was sent for his love. The devil doesn't drive people to sin because he's evil, but because God doesn't eat tainted meat.
Number 7.
Made this account just to post this since I'm a longtime fan of this thread, so here it goes. For a little background info, at the time it happened, my friend and I were 18 years old and freshmen in college. It's a long story, but I promise, every part is necessary to understand it as a whole. This frightening situation happened during Thanksgiving break. My friend Angela and I were high school acquaintances, but got really close during college. Since we were from the same city and started interacting more because of the fact, naturally, we carpooled to and from our university to our hometown, which is around 5 hours away by car. At the end of Thanksgiving break, we leave around 11 p.m. and start our trip back. Around 3 hours into the trip, Angela, the driver, tells me that she's starting to feel a bit sleepy. So rather than stop in the middle of nowhere and change seats, I decide to talk to her and keep her busy. We get into a really deep conversation, etc., and for fun, we decide to Snapchat a little of the road trip with the flashlight on. I know, I'm stupid. After laughing and Snapchatting, we see police sirens go on right behind us. Great. It's 2 a.m. and cops pull us over. They stayed in their car for a few minutes, which seemed odd, but oh well, we thought. As I see two of them walking towards us, they whispered something to each other, but we didn't think anything of it. One of them goes to Angela's window and the other to mine.
Hey there, ladies.
This one by Angela's window says,
How are y'all doing tonight?
with this creepy ass smile. None suspecting Angela responds good. She then asks what was the reason for pulling us over. Going over the speed limit, he says, Mind you, we were Snapchatting right before he pulled us over, and Angela was purposely going a little under the speed limit to not crash and just to be safe while we were Snapchatting. Confused, she just goes, okay, and asks if he needs any documentation, to which he responds, no. While all of this is going on, the second cop by my window signals me to lower the window, and I oblige. He then starts making insinuating comments and gestures towards me, like pointing his flashlight towards my crotch while smiling, telling me how long my legs were as an excuse to look at them cause I'm wearing shorts.
Oh, so it's just you two. I see.
And what we were doing at this time in the middle of nowhere, amongst other things that honestly were not related at all to pulling us over and out of line for police officers to be asking. Then the first cop asks,
Are y'all in college?
to which I respond, yes, actually we're headed to university now. I knew we fucked up there because they now knew we weren't heading anywhere close. He then proceeds to say,
College girls, huh?
to the other cop again with the eerie smile. Honestly, what the fuck? By this time, we were beyond creeped out and wanted to get out of this situation ASAP, but these creeps wouldn't let us go. They kept trying to make conversation while implying really weird and sexual stuff like, y'all know where we're at? There's a prison nearby here, you know.
I sure hope nothing happens to you ladies.
And,
Do you think anyone would know if something happened to you here, all alone on the road?
they said this all while smiling. I'm in shock, and I can't believe this is happening to us. These are the men we're supposed to trust and rely on, but here we are trying to free ourselves of them for our own safety. Wanting to finish this now, I ask, are we getting a ticket? To which the cop by the driver's side window says,
No, but I'll give you a verbal warning.
all as I feel the other cop staring right at me. He wrote something in his notepad and said,
Y'all be careful now. Wouldn't want anything bad to happen to you pretty ladies. Ain't that right?
Then the officer next to me tries to open the door. The hell? Out of nowhere, he tried to open the door, but thankfully the doors were locked and my window wasn't low enough for him to reach in and manually unlock the door. After this, I was in total shock, just staring at him while he just stared back. No explanation or anything. Angela quickly starts up the car, says thank you, have a good night, and speeds off. We didn't call our parents right then and there because it was the dead of night and we didn't want to worry them, but instead, Angela's boyfriend, who was already waiting for us at the university, and asked to be called and updated in case of anything. After driving in silence while constantly checking if they were behind us for about 30 minutes, I start talking to Angela. We're both shaken and speechless. I ask her why stop us in the first place if we didn't commit any infraction. Then we realized they saw that we were two girls because of the stupid flashlight I used while recording and pulled us over. They also probably stayed in the car before walking towards us to check if it was actually only two of us or something of the sort. They gave an uncomfortable aura, and I wouldn't be surprised if they were planning on raping us, or worse. Honestly, I don't know what would have happened if the doors were unlocked, and wouldn't like to even imagine. So, lessons to learn. 1. Don't do road trips in the dead of night, especially if you're girls. Lesson 2. Don't unknowingly trust cops. There are good ones as there are evil. Lesson 3. Always have someone know where you're at.